Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see all of the folks that have added their name and their location. It looks like we have a really great group from around the world today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just about to get started, so thank you. I hope you're all here for the AI to AI Challenge webinar. If so, you're in the right place. All right, here we go. Let's get started. And so as you're continuing to come in, would love to hear from you. What's your name, your organization? Where in the world are you joining from today? It's so great to see all you here, meet you all virtually. We're going to just breeze through a couple of introductory slides, and then we'll get into questions from the audience. Shubi, if you can go to the next slide, we'll look at the agenda. So if you are here, I'm assuming that you are here for the AI to AI challenge overview. We're here to talk about the challenge, a brief introduction on the goals of the challenge and key dates to keep in mind. We'll talk a bit about the application and the review process, answer some frequently asked questions that we've already gotten from this challenge and previous challenges that we've run at data.org. And then we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience. So just a note on housekeeping is that we would love to hear from you in the chat. As you have questions, please type them in. I'm Lindsay Gottschalk, Director of Partnerships at data.org. I'm joined by my colleague, Shubi Vijay, who will be here monitoring the chat. And between the two of us, we're hoping that we can answer most of your questions. But if not, we will make sure that we are both collecting all questions that were asked today and answered and putting them back onto our website in the FAQ section, as well as anything that we either were not able to get to or could not find a good answer to. We'll make sure that we collect that and also put it back on the website. So please do check that FAQ section on the challenge page. Next slide, please. So we would not be here today without our partners. So I want to say a huge thank you, first off, to the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. This challenge would not exist without them. They are both the primary funder of the challenge as well as our thought partner in creating the challenge. And so a huge thank you to the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. I also want to say a big thank you to Dasra, who has come in to help sponsor the challenge. They will be supporting our ability to add an additional project in India. And so we're so grateful for their support. For those of you who are new to data.org, I first of all want to reiterate welcome. Thank you for being here. But I wanted to just share a little bit about the organization and our objectives. Data.org is working to accelerate the field of data and AI for social impact. We really work to try to drive collaboration across sectors and use data and AI to solve some of our greatest global challenges. Where we were launched in 2020 by the Rockefeller Foundation and the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. And since then, we've really focused on three core areas: cases, capacity, and commons. So we believe very strongly in the need to build the capacity of the social impact sector to better use data and AI. This cannot happen unless we both focus on the individuals, the people, as well as the organizations that are the heart of this sector. So that's really the core, the bread and butter of what we're trying to do, is to empower people and organizations to better use data and AI for social impact. And we also believe very strongly in investing in cases, so showing what good work looks like. All of the work that you're doing on the ground, how can we lift up those stories and show new people entering this field what great work looks like? All right, a quick switch. We're going to do a quick switch here. I think my sound is back. Everyone can confirm. Okay, so I was just about to get to the comments and then we'll wrap up. So a big thing that we believe in is contributing back to the global commons, tools, resources, ways to support people in the field who are doing this work. And so you'll see some of those themes come up a lot as we talk about the challenge and why we prioritize some of the things that we do in our application. But we can go to the next slide now. Thank you for bearing with me. So the Artificial Intelligence to Accelerate Inclusion Challenge, the AI to AI Challenge, we're really looking to identify innovative but existing AI solutions that are ready for scale. So we're looking for those, this is a key distinction. We want to make sure that we've identified people who have at least had an opportunity to test their solutions and are in a position where that additional investment of funding and technical assistance will help take their solutions to the next level. With that ultimate goal of how are you using AI to accelerate inclusion and economic empowerment. We think that it's so important that we do this with a lens of responsible AI. And we also recognize that inclusive growth is a really broad intersectional field, and we're particularly interested in applications that show an awareness of intersectional problems such as climate or gender equity, racial equity, and of course that are locally informed. These are some of our guiding principles as an organization and within the challenge, and so you will also see this reflected in some of the questions that are asked. We also see this challenge as an opportunity to democratize AI, and so you'll see that in the way that we're trying to deploy not only funding but also technical assistance. So what are we looking for? You'll see this again, like none of this information should be new. It is all available either on our website, which we can land in the chat again. I'm assuming that you all probably found your way here from there, but this is all available on our website or should be available in the challenge application itself. But just to review, we're looking for applications that holistically address what's your proposed solution and impact, really narrowing in on the problem you're trying to solve, the solution, how that's unique, and ultimately, how that solution advances inclusive growth. We really want to hear you make the justification for how you are contributing to this space. We want to focus on localism and inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, which includes really thinking about the impacted community or user group, the challenges and biases that are inherent in your proposal, and then how you plan to think about those things and mitigate that throughout the duration of your proposal in all stages. Responsible AI, so ethical data practices, mitigation of unintended harms. We know that these exist, when we're using AI, and so we want to see that you've thought intentionally about what could go wrong here and how you intend to mitigate that. And then we want to know about your team, your organization, how you will deliver. So this includes a look at your organizational capacity, any partners you've engaged or planning to engage, as well as an opportunity to hear from you in your own words, what kinds of technical assistance might support your project. This helps us once we get to the end and we try to identify opportunities to match technical assistance to those awardee projects and potentially a larger group that have applied to the challenge. Next slide, please. On capacity, I do want to put in a plug for the data maturity assessment. We have included this as part of the application. I do want to just acknowledge that this will not at all impact your score on the application. This really helps us to understand, first of all, it's really two goals.
One, data.org, we're interested in how do we build and support and accelerate the field of data and AI for social impact. The more that we hear from all of you, the more that we understand how to really focus our resources on doing that better. The second is more practically focused on the challenge. And once we get to that end state of, a lot of times when we're trying to match for good opportunities to technical assistance, there it's really helpful to know where an organization is in their data maturity to understand, what are the opportunities for partnership that are best aligned with where you are in your stage. So we just ask you to please take this and please answer honestly, because that really helps us to make a better match. Next, please. This is just to say that we really do encourage applications from across the globe. We will consider the context that you are operating in. The more that you can communicate that, the better. We acknowledge that not every community around the world has historically had access to things like large data sets, to build large language models, things like this, or certain types of technology. That is perfectly fine. You should still apply for the challenge, and you should tell us how you're planning on using AI in your community, for whatever problem you are trying to solve. So our objectives here, we want to ensure that AI solutions serve the public good to transform society for the better. That's why we are all here today. We want to make sure that these solutions are community driven. We want to make sure that we are inclusive of as many communities as possible. And to the note about available technology, we're really open to solutions that offer new approaches to existing technology or the reality of whatever technology you're using, or suggestions that might elevate existing technologies that you work with. Next slide, please. So yeah, quick note about the deadlines here. We are seeking in this first phase, which we are in right now, a written application that comes in through our platform, which is linked to on our main site. The deadline is July 18th. We will not be accepting anything later than this. We just simply can't, where we're moving very rapidly. And so please, please, please do consider that this is a hard deadline, and plan for any issues ahead of time. Once this comes in, we have a pool of reviewers that will evaluate that application, based on a rubric that considers all of those factors that we talked about before. So we're really looking for holistic solutions that have considered all of those critical topics. We'll then move into our next phase, where we will be asking everyone who is moving to that next phase to submit additional materials for due diligence, and sign up for an interview slot with a member of our team. We will also be running applications through a panel of expert judges who will review finalist applications. It's one additional input to the review process, and you can find the names of those judges, who we're so grateful to, on our challenge website. The awardee announcement will just sort of depend on the best moment that we can find, but we anticipate doing this sometime between November and January of next year. Okay, so we're going to get really quickly into some FAQs that we've gotten a lot. I'll breeze through these so that we can leave plenty of time for questions at the end. And just note that, please start to type any questions that you have into the chat. My colleague Shubi will be collecting them and passing them to me. And yeah, we'll try to get through them all. Okay, so first one that we get a lot: what's a good fit? Again, we're looking for proposals that meet our criteria that we talked about previously. So really key that it is an existing solution that's at least been tested in one market, at least been piloted. and we're looking to take it to the next level. Um, Beyond that, I think one of the beauties of inclusive growth is that it is so intersectional. We're really looking forward to hearing how you put your own spin on how you are using AI to advance inclusive growth. I've included a few of the things that are top of mind for us. But this is really just to say, if you have something that you think fits, apply. We want to hear from you. Who is eligible to apply? So, typically organizations that we think of in this space, nonprofits, social enterprises, academics from around the globe. Um, what is really the most important is just that the solution itself has a charitable purpose, as defined in Section 501c3 of the IRS Code of the U.S. This is where we are based. We have to operate under these laws. It's not used for political lobbying, and unfortunately, we have a couple of countries that we cannot legally work with. But more detail about all of this is listed in the terms and conditions of the challenge, which is linked to on that main challenge page. The award is 200,000 USD, as well as we will make a good effort to find opportunities for technical assistance, which could, range from in-kind support from people with certain data science skills to mentorship. We've left an area for you to define what technical assistance would be most useful to you. And a lot of it really just depends on supply and demand, and going through that matchmaking process. Okay, so we're talking a lot about scale. How do we define scale? I'm just including a couple of these. These are also, it's both written in the application, as well as I believe it's in the FAQ section, but we're looking for solutions that are either in pilot phase, so they're early in their implementation. They have done a little bit of that testing already. It's not just proof of concept, but they do require a bit more testing to understand feasibility. Scaling, so starting to reach a larger scale. And then replication. So thinking about applications to lateral contexts, different sectors, geographies, implementing groups, etc. Next question. Yeah, so this is one that we've gotten a lot. So AI doesn't have to be the sole part of your intervention. It just has to be a component of your intervention. Make it really clear in your application about how you are using AI and how this is supporting your innovation for inclusive growth. But no, it does not have to be the sole part of your application. No, we are not currently opening up the challenge for individuals. They do need to be from an organization, and we'll also, there's a lot more detail about this when we start getting into some of the nuances of organizations, but the rules of the challenge, the terms and conditions, should be much more helpful for answering this. So we've gotten this question a lot about submitting more than one proposal. The short answer is no. Organizations can only submit a single entry to the challenge. There are, however, some entities that are just so large that there are different parts that could be considered their own organization, right? If we think about a really large university system or some, massive global nonprofits with different country offices that operate independently, we will consider those on a case-by-case basis. I think it's really important that you can just make the argument credibly that these teams function independently. They're more or less like different organizations, and there's no overlap in project staff. We are able to cover indirect costs, and some of this we'll get into more if you are invited to the second phase where we will ask for a budget. But typically, our maximum threshold for indirects is 15%. Again, we know that there are some institutions where that's more difficult, but we will address this when we get into the next phase of the project. Okay, so here are some useful links, and I believe Shuvi can also drop this into the chat later on. But I do want to open it up for audience Q&A, and please bear with me as I try to look through and see what we can tackle first. I see one that I can answer quickly. Can the lead nonprofit partner with a for-profit business? Yes, this is possible. Really, so a lot of this, some of the details just do happen on a case-by-case basis, but generally this is fine. I think the really core thing to emphasize here is that the project itself must be for a charitable purpose. So that's really our North Star. We have been able to work with some for-profits in a limited capacity if we are able to demonstrate that, and also that outputs are for the public good. But certainly as a sub-grantee or partner, that is possible as well, as long as it meets the criteria for our North Star of charitable purpose for the project. What does localism mean to us? And will a case study of a single community be suitable? Yes. Yes. I would say that, certainly a core piece of localism to us is just really thoughtful design and implementation of solutions. Are you coming in with a solution already pre-baked, or have you really thought about working closely with affected parties and users, et cetera, on identifying the core needs of the community and building them into all stages of the process? I think that that's one way that we can address that. I think we do want to see how AI is being used in communities around the globe, but that it's going to look so different everywhere. So yes, I think as long as it meets other criteria, we would certainly be open to a case study of a single community. And especially if you can make the case for why that single community, what we can learn from it that might have applications to other communities in a similar geography or in other geographies. Let's see, collaboration. I think, so we have a question about whether we can speak to the importance of collaboration for the project. Some examples were given about multiple PIs, industry partners, et cetera. It's not at all mandatory to show that there's collaboration, but what I will say about that is that many of these projects take place within a larger ecosystem. Whether that partner is community-based organization, or you're thinking about the local academic infrastructure, government, et cetera. I think just some awareness of the environment that you are operating in and who you will have to, if not directly partner with, at least influence, will certainly help strengthen your application. But it's not a requirement to have external partners to deliver your solution. But I would love to see an awareness of how your organization and your project fits within a wider ecosystem. So I was also asked a question. I don't know if it was answered previously, but expanding on this question about charitable purpose, and the question of whether this includes a product from an enterprise that has a social impact. So yes, I think if the question is about the product with a social impact, I think the social impact piece is key, right? So I think as long as you can make a credible case for social impact, and then we'll also talk about, what's the end product that comes out of that? What are we going to learn? What goes out into the field? Is this just being used for profit, or is there a wider social impact case to be made for it? I do think that some of those questions can get a bit nuanced, and so I do want to be careful about making any super black and white statement about that. But I think the North Star is whether the project itself has a social impact focus and outputs that contribute to social impact. Um, so, existing solution. Can we speak more about how to define an existing solution? Does that mean existing data, existing non-AI solution that could apply AI, existing solution that already applies AI? I would say ideally it is an existing solution that already applies AI. It can be from another domain, another specific use case that you're testing in a new way. I think what we want to avoid is just projects that are completely in ideation mode where no aspect of it has ever been tested before. So I think just having the data is probably not enough in this case. But being able to show that you've at least had some demonstration, some proof of concept for what you want to do, would be at least a baseline for showing that you're ready to take this to the next level. How many projects do we expect to fund through the challenge? So we have committed to funding at least 4. If we are able to raise any additional funding from other partners, we are definitely open to expanding the number of solutions that we fund. I will say that something that we are excited about is also the potential to match to technical assistance. In the past, we have also made an effort to look for high potential projects that are really clear about their technical assistance needs, and where we do have additional supply, try to find a good match. And so that's why I want to just put in a plug for taking the data maturity assessment in a very honest and transparent way, as well as for identifying how you think your organization could benefit from technical assistance. And that will help us to be able to provide more in-kind support once we get further along in this process. All right, thank you for bearing with me. We have a number of really great questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing a breadth of them. There's a question that came in about a budget template prior to phase 2. And yes, this is something that we do provide ahead of inviting a short list of applicants to pass to the next level. We do ask for a number of financial and organizational due diligence documents, a budget, as well as some more detail on the project's goals and milestones. But so all of that we can provide that's templatized, we will. So rest assured. In terms of a rubric for the content required in the proposal, that is all in AwardForce, which is the platform that we partner with. It's all available if you go to apply to the challenge. You can create an account. You can start to play around with the questions. You can preview everything, and it's editable up until the moment that you hit submit. So please do check that out, have an idea of what the questions are. There are some spaces where there might be additional information that helps you understand what the question is asking. And if not, I'd also point you to the FAQ document that we will continue to update. Yeah, there's a great question in the chat about funding of a technology versus funding of capacity building. Yes, funding of capacity building using AI, definitely eligible. So again, this is a place where I'm going to be a bit vague and not telling you exactly what solution, because I think that we want to hear from you. What are the problems that are most critical to your community that you are solving with AI? And I absolutely think that there is a place to think about capacity building. And so, it is not necessarily just funding of technology. And again, yeah, questions about length and structure of submissions. These are all, I encourage you to check out the application. We have length built in. It will cut you off if it is too lengthy, but all of that word count, everything is baked into the application itself. And I will also just say that, we will not answer questions about specific applications, but if there is something that is unique to your situation that doesn't get into, is this a good application? Is my solution a good application? You can always send it to us at challenge@data.org. We will try to answer that. And if it is a common question, we will put it up on our FAQ document online. See. All right. Let me just see if I can find any other questions that we should address. Thank you all so much for being here and for asking such great questions. Mm. So, I mean, so there's a question that came in about common mistakes or pitfalls in the application process that we should avoid. The number one is just to make sure that you submit on time. But otherwise, I would say, we've intentionally included all of those 4 sections. I can't say that that's exactly equal weight, but I would say that each question really means something to our team. And when we were designing this, we wanted to really balance something that would be an easy enough lift, that this is not a waste of anyone's time. And at the same time, make sure that we were asking enough thoughtful questions that we could really assess, does this meet all of those goals, and address the values that we spoke about earlier on in the presentation. And so I would say that a really, I wouldn't say that it's a common mistake or pitfall, but I would just encourage you to think very, very holistically about the whole application. We've asked questions for a reason. We do hope that you have thought as much about the purpose of your solution, and the execution of it as you have about, the elements of responsible AI and localism and the team that's going to help get you there. And so that's what I would offer there, is that it's sort of in the design of the application. We want to just see that you've thought about all of these components. Let's see. There is not, so someone has asked a question about the scope of projects and impact that could be considered inclusive growth and whether there's a set of examples. I'd really point you to check out our partners at the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth to see how they are defining inclusive growth. I believe, and if we have not linked to it, we can, but that we do link to a definition of inclusive growth somewhere in the application. But yeah, I would encourage you to go there first. And again, to not necessarily overthink it. Really just, if you can demonstrate it, it's such a great area because it is so intersectional. And so I think as long as you can really demonstrate how your project is helping to advance inclusive growth, that's definitely, I would consider that eligible for this. Great question about the project time frame. So this particular award, projects that we will fund will be for a 12-month period. So that is the distribution of the award money, 200,000, as well as technical assistance, although some of that can be sort of adjusted based on where the need is greatest. That could potentially extend beyond the 12-month period if needed. I would say that it's very likely that your proposal is part of a wider plan for implementation, and that's absolutely fine, as long as you show us what's realistic within that 12-month period. I'm so happy. I think there is a question in there already about sustainability and the continued impact of your project beyond grant funding. And so I think as long as you can clearly address what is possible today and with 12 months of runway, and what do you hope to achieve beyond that period to continue to sustain the project? If you can address both of those, that's great. But it's 12 months is 1 year is the time frame. I am not going to link to any case studies. I think just because we do not want to steer anyone in one direction or another, but what I will offer is that to get an idea of sort of how we think, and what sort of qualifies and what we think about as being an ideal project that shows the potential of this work. I'd really encourage you to go back and look at other challenges that data.org has run. So the Inclusive Growth and Recovery Challenge in 2020 and the Generative AI Skills Challenge in 2023. You'll be able to find the problem statement, what we were asking for, as well as a really great handful of case studies, 9 great case studies for the Inclusive Growth and Recovery Challenge and 5 for the Generative AI Skills Challenge. And that'll give you an idea of projects that we felt really met the mark for the type of challenge that we were running. And I would offer that as inspiration. And we are not, there's a question about AI and whether we are tilted in any one direction. And I would say that we are both. We are open to anything AI, including generative AI, and we are also, there's no specific advantage or disadvantage. I think again, it would come back to like what we're really concerned about is, does this make sense? Is the application of these methodologies, these technologies, appropriate for this specific use case? Does it advance impact? Does it do it in a responsible way? I think these are always going to be the core questions that we ask, and are not really going to exhibit a preference for one application over another. So there's a question about a preference for lower to middle income communities. I think that there is, again, no preference. I think we just want to make sure that, I think historically, a lot of the way that AI and a lot of tech investment has been focused has excluded a lot of communities around the globe. And so I think that when we state that we want to run a global challenge and explicitly call out low and middle income countries, communities, contexts, this is intentional to say that we will consider the context that you are operating in, and we actively welcome people to apply from all over the place. That is also not to say that we will not fund an innovative application in a higher income country. I think as long as you're focused on how it is improving inclusive growth within that country, which likely includes working with people in lower and middle income contexts, that would be my steer there. But it's no exclusion of higher income countries. Yeah, there's a question about pilots and how to show impact, since some of that impact is going to be slow to come in. And so I think this person suggested showing their KPIs and showing progress towards them. I think that obviously that is something that we will consider for any project that is earlier on in their growth. And so yeah, as long as you can clearly demonstrate how you are thinking about impact, how you are measuring impact, and how you are making progress, how do you know that this is worth continuing or not? Make that case to us, and that's totally fine. We also understand that if you are submitting a pilot, that's going to be a very different consideration than a project that is looking to scale or replicate. So context, the more that you can provide context, the more that helps us assess. All right. I do believe that we are getting close. I know that there have been a couple of questions that have come in that have been really more about individual projects or get into super specifics that I do want to be careful about giving an answer to on this public webinar. So that's maybe why I've skipped a couple, but I think we're getting close to wrapping up all of the questions. Let's see. So I think I'm going to end on a question that came in about whether we are going to run this again, which is a great question. And so, as I've mentioned, this is not the first challenge that data.org has run. This is something that we consider, if there's the right opportunity for us, we love to operate a challenge. We also want to be careful about, we usually don't replicate the exact same type of challenge. So certainly coming exactly in this form, I think it probably won't happen again. But I definitely would watch this space. Data.org will very likely be running more challenges in the future. And so a really great way to stay up to date on what's coming is to come to our website, it's to follow our newsletter, subscribe to our newsletter, and to come to events like this. And I will also just put in a plug, especially for all of you at different stages of data maturity in your organizations. We are continuing to expand the resources that are on the data.org site. So I hope that there might be tools and resources that are valuable to you. So I would encourage you to check that out, especially if you are newer to data.org. And yeah, we do. Part of what I laid out in cases, capacity commons. So cases showing what great work looks like. We love to post stories of impact of organizations around the globe that are using data science, including AI, for impact in their communities. And so we include these on our website. So check that out. Impact stories at data.org. Thank you very much for that question. And I believe that's it. So thank you so much to everyone who came out. Thank you so much to Shuvi, who has been doing a million things at the same time to read Q&A and post links. I would encourage everyone to go back to the challenge website. If there's anything that was not answered today, you can contact us at challenge@data.org. We will be running another one of these next week on July 1st. And otherwise, we'll make sure that we are getting all of the questions that came in into our FAQ section on the site, and hope to be able to answer as many as possible. But I just want to leave you on the encouragement to apply. We really do want to hear from you. We want to discover what it is that your organization is doing, how you are using AI for social impact. We're so inspired by all of the work that you're doing, and are excited to find avenues for support and to learn from you, whether it's through this challenge or through an opportunity down the line. So please apply. Thank you so much. Bye.